Hola and welcome to our 34th episode of the Roofless Dog and Pony Show. I am Julio Panisello, the dream alchemist at Roofless Painters, and I'm going to be the host of this presentation. The Roofless Dog and Pony Show is a weekly live presentation featuring the conceptual and the stylistic inspiration behind our painting webinars. We introduce the theme of the next painting collection. We talk about the inspiration behind it. We bring up a little bit of art history. We have prepared some slides featuring paintings that are related to the theme. And so these episodes serve as an introduction to each painting webinar. So when we start painting, then we can just get down to work. So you can find all the episodes here on Instagram. You can also find all the episodes on our YouTube channel. And just leave us a comment or a note. You can also follow us by subscribing on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. And I'm just going to go ahead and show the first slide. And this week we're going to do something different. We've done portraits. We've done back-to-back 3 portrait-based webinars. But this week we're going to change the tone. It's just going to be also, perhaps I should say, it's going to be another portrait, but it's going to be a different portrait. So the title of the webinar is First Dogs, and we are going to paint portraits of the 2 first dogs currently living in the White House, Champ and Major. This is the first, or I should say the official portrait, the official image of Champ and Major in the Oval Office. It was precisely released, I would say, a couple of days ago. And the reason why we thought it would be a good idea to do portraits of Champ and Major, it's because last week someone on TV, a conservative newscaster, dedicated an entire segment to criticize the presidential dogs because they are rescue and they just don't look like purebred dogs. And the segment and the criticism went on and on, saying things like one of the dogs needed a bath and a comb and all kinds of love and care. Another mention or something else was said about this dog looks, from the junkyard. So they mentioned one of the dogs, I think it was Champ, looking like it came from a junkyard dog. They went on and they said that they look very dirty and disheveled and very unlike a presidential dog. So obviously that was outrageous and it was meant to provoke. But we're going to say a couple of things. Number one, we are delighted that we're back to having scandals about mundane and quotidian things. So that's for one. And the second thing is that obviously these people are wrong. And we wanted to make sure that we took this opportunity to actually make our own presidential portraits of the first rescue dogs in the Oval Office or in the White House. So I wanted, first of all, to just mention a couple of things about Champ and Major that we've learned. So Major is the first shelter dog living in the White House. There were no pets This is from the Wikipedia. Champ and Major, by the way, they already have a Wikipedia page, and it's interesting because whoever wrote this, well, you know, is throwing a little bit of shade. Like, for example, in this sentence, there were no pets living in the White House during the 4 years of the Trump administration. This and the Polk administration, Polk administration were the only extended periods without presidential pets in the White House. President John F. Kennedy and wife Jackie also owned 2 German Shepherd dogs named Shannon and Clipper. So I'm just going to briefly mention a few things because I find them very interesting. We just know Champ and Major and that's it. But there is something interesting about their lives and their names that I feel now much more compelled to do a presidential portrait of the dogs. Joe Biden promised his wife he would purchase a dog after the 2008 presidential election, should Barack Obama manage to win the race. Jill taped different pictures of dogs on seats of Biden's campaign plane for him to see. He purchased the dog as a puppy from a breeder in Pennsylvania, and it was named Champ by his granddaughters. Champ's name reminded Biden of advice given to him by his father, who said, quote, "Anytime you get knocked down, Champ, get up," end quote. Joe Biden has an affinity for German Shepherds. Having trained them in the past, Biden would give children small plush toys of Champ during his vice presidency, which to me just opens a new chapter in the story of the president's character, if you ask me. Major is the dog that is the first rescue dog. I thought they were both rescued, but no, Champ was purchased, Major was rescued. Major was a rescue from a litter that had been exposed to, quote, something toxic, unquote, in their home, and their owner was unable to afford the expense of the vet. He was fostered by the Bidens earlier that year from the Delaware Humane Association's shelter, and has been with them since late 2018. On the day Joe Biden adopted the dog from the shelter, he stayed telling stories and taking selfies with staffers for over an hour. The origin of Major's name is not publicly known, but Beau Biden, Joe Biden's son with his first wife, Nelia Hunter Biden, was a major in the Delaware National Guard. Major joined several other dogs adopted by world leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and his Labrador Griffon cross, Nemo, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Portuguese water dog, Kenzie. So, the things that we learned about Champ and Major just made them much more endearing, and we feel much more inclined to dedicate our next painting collection to producing portraits of them. So, just gonna bring some paintings of dogs throughout history, and pet portraiture, I guess, has been a theme or a subject for paintings for centuries. But I just, unlike other subjects, there are many paintings and many examples of dogs making it into paintings. But we're just gonna, we curated a small selection of paintings for you to see, and we're gonna try to keep this short because we have tons. Possibly the most famous in our book is this painting portrait by Manet, not Monet, by Manet. Bob the dog, I think his name was Bob. Bob the dog, painted in 1876. We were so lucky to be able to be able to be in front of this painting last year or maybe 2 years ago, or I don't even know which year, but the Getty had a retrospective of the late work of Manet, and this painting was there. And it was one of the stars of the show. The other star of the show was Zizi the Cat, which was Manet and Manet's wife's cat. But personally, this was my favorite painting in the show. I don't know if you can observe and see how loosely the fur is painted. It's a really fun and very, I would say, modern painting, even though it was done in the late 1800s. But it's very small with a large frame, and it has the name Bob engraved at the bottom of the frame. It's really darling, and people believe that Bob was the dog of one of Manet's best friends, and he painted a portrait of his dog. But anyhow, so we brought a Baroque painting from the golden Dutch Renaissance. A sleeping dog with terracotta pot by Marguerite Zurag, painted in 1650. So he was a Dutch Golden Age painter, and we just love the painting of the sleeping dog right next to the terracotta pot, and we love that the title mentions the sleeping dog with the terracotta pot. And this painter apparently was famous for the Trump Doyle niche paintings. So paintings that had the illusion of walls being recessed and still lifes being part of or inside as an insert in the wall. Someone will be very happy to see this. It's a painting. It's not a very well-known painting, but it's a painting by Anders Zorn. The title is Emma and Moosh, the dog, 1902, and Anders Zorn is famous for inventing or creating the Zorn palette. He was one of the most famous, or the most famous Swedish painters at the time, turn of the century. And the Zorn palette, this is painted with a Zorn palette. The Zorn palette only has like 4 colors. Lead white, which is today's flake white, yellow ochre, vermilion in today's painting categories, I would say. It's the cadmium red light, so that's the closest to vermilion. No one does vermilion anymore. And ivory black. So this painting only has 4 colors on it, and we are fascinated by the Zorn palette, but also by Anders Zorn. And this is a great image or painting of a figure with a dog. We had to bring a painting by Giovanni Boldini. We love Boldini's body of work. He was the master of swish. There's his paintings are of very ritzy and glamorous people, and they're done in very loose brushstrokes, and I think they're fantastic and beautiful. But anyhow, so yes, he was known as the master of swish. And you can see the example. It's a very weird dog. You can see the example of the swishing of the brushstroke on the fur cascading over the fingers of the figure. But the dog, it's the nose looks a little bit flattened. So it's like a humanoid, an anthropomorphic sort of a dog. But anyhow, we like this painting, and with no neck. There's something really weird about the whole thing being attached, the head and the body. So it's not the most famous painting by Boldini, obviously, but we've never seen this painting before. But we just wanted to bring it as an example of beginning of the 20th century dog portraits. Speaking of Boldini, one of the most famous, or one of the painters that influenced Boldini the most, I would say, is this French painter that you guys must Google and know, because we are in love with his work. His name was Paul César Helleu. Paul César Helleu. This painting is titled, or this pastel or sketch, Duchess de Marlborough, Consuelo Vanderbilt. We brought it just because we showed up Boldini, and I feel like it's very hard to talk about Boldini without mentioning this amazing French Belle Epoque painter that it's not very well known. And this is a sketch, but if you Google his name, Paul César Helleu, you will find portraits of high society individuals, extremely stylized and super beautiful. And anyhow, so he also conceived the ceiling mural of the night sky constellations for Grand Central Terminal in New York City. So there you go. And I'm just going to say this because it's fabulous. He was also the father of Jean Helleu and grandfather of Jacques Helleu, both artistic directors for Parfums Chanel. All right, let me just move forward. But anyhow, Mary Cassatt, an American in Paris, an American in the middle of the Impressionists that art history kind of like dismissed, but she was very famous. One of like the trois dames of Impressionism. I need to polish my French. But yeah, she has a lot of paintings of children and also of her daughter, Julia. And I'm not sure if this is her daughter or not, but I just brought this image of pastel. It's actually a pastel with the image of the family dog, if that's Julia. And it's amazing how incredibly painted represented the dog is with just a few brush strokes. When speaking of Mary Cassatt, and also we are going to show images of Bert Morisseau, there's something that we absolutely love and something that makes us extremely upset. And the reason is because there were women impressionists at the time, late 1800s. They were revolutionary and talented, and they're rebellious, and they came up with new ways of painting. They are not credited enough because something about society at the time forbid them to go out and paint like their male counterparts. Women were not allowed to go to bars and cafes by themselves. And we take these things for granted. We see images of interiors of cafes and we think, oh my gosh, those guys were amazing. The fact is that most women painters were confined in their homes, and they had no choice but to paint domestic scenes. So it wasn't because they just want it, okay, just, we're gonna paint babies and pets and flowers, and that's it. It's because they couldn't really take part or partake on the new plein air revolution that allowed so many technical breakthroughs that their male counterparts enjoyed. They couldn't go to to the clubs. The only women that were allowed in clubs and cafes at the time were prostitutes. So next time you see an impressionist painting and you feel like that's incredible and amazing, just think that there was a discrimination against a group of painters that were not allowed to be there. They were not allowed to sketch. They had to go with their husbands if they were able to go, and it was a big deal. But let's just go back to the dogs. This is Edvard Munch painting of a dog. It's titled Head of a Dog, and we talked about Edvard Munch because this week I think the Norwegian Museum made it official that one tagged message on the first edition or version of the Scream was in fact made by Edvard Munch, and it wasn't an act of vandalism. So because of that story, we just wanted to bring an example of Edvard Munch, and look at how this dog is painted. 1930, it's a little bit away from the amazing revolutions in painting in the turn of the century, but still it's pretty a very good example of expressionism, getting really close to abstract expressionism, if you ask me. Of course, we had to bring Pierre Bonnard. Pierre Bonnard was a French painter that formed Les Nabis, which was a group of painters that treated realism in a different way. Pierre Bonnard has incredible interior scenes. This is a painting titled, I don't have the title, 1905. And anyhow, we just brought it because of the composition, because of the relationship between figure and dog. The dog is not facing us. We try to bring, with these slides, we try to bring examples of pet portraits that are famous and they don't feel commercial, or they don't feel, commercial. Let's just put it, let's just leave it there. Whoops. So yeah, Pierre Bonnard, he was famous for giving as much importance to the space as the figures in it. Essentially, you look at a Pierre Bonnard painting and the first thing that comes forward is not the figure. It's the space, it's the light, it's the composition. And then you discover that there are figures in it, and then you're like, wow, that's amazing. But we've never seen this painting before, and it's just a beautiful example of not only his treatment of reality, but also the fact that dogs were part of the subject matter. Anyhow, this is moving, so I'm just gonna do something here. All right, here. It's not a great image, but it's a Soutine. Chaim Soutine was also a post-impressionist, I would say, painter. He was Russian and made a major contribution to the expressionist movement, yes, while living and working in Paris. Soutine is known for painting meat. There's a famous painting of like a bloody rib cage open, and unfortunately that's the painting that everyone kind of knows. But he's also famous. My favorite collection of Soutine work is a series of portraits he did of chefs, and we highly recommend you kind of like go check out Soutine's chefs portraits. Because they're wonderful and they're beautifully painted. But this is, I don't have the title, but I have the year, 1919, an expressionist portrait of a figure with a dog on the lap. And just notice the amazing use of black and complementary palette of purple and yellow, and the orange that is so vitriolic on the flower on the hat and the fur on the dog. So compositionally, this is such a strong, dynamic a powerful, expressive use of color on a theme that feels very classic. So Satine, and then we have a Fauvist. A Fauve portrait. We've been talking about Fauvism because some of the portraits that we did for Bartley Hendricks, we felt that they had like a Fauvist aspect to them. So this is Maurice de Blaminck. Maurice de Blaminck. He was a French painter, and along with Derain and Matisse, the most important figures in the Fauvist movement, which only lasted 3 years because the critics savaged this art movement, and the painters gave up, essentially. So this is Woman with a Dog by Maurice de Blaminck, and check out the way the dog is rendered and featured. So again, the purpose of this is to go through modern and recent art history and find examples of dogs in portraits that have been treated with different styles, not hyperrealism and not the blue dog. That's I hope that trend is forgotten. We've never seen this Gustave Caillebotte. Gustave Caillebotte was a French painter that, he was contemporary of the Impressionists, but he painted a little bit different, and he never got the credit that he deserved just because he wasn't revolutionary compared to the other group of people. Richard Gallo and his dog at Petit Gennevilliers. 1884, late 1800s. Gustave Caillebotte is famous for that painting of the streets of Paris as it's raining, with a couple carrying an umbrella, and one of the corners of Paris featured in the background. I should know the title of that painting, but I don't. Caillebotte painted modern Paris. He painted the new buildings, the new bridges. He painted things at night. But we love this painting obviously because of the poodle. I don't know if you can see the poodle on the left side, but and the use of light, the percolating light on the coat and pants of the gentleman. Excuse me, please just watch that fireworks explode on that coat. It's so amazing. Yes, there's the water reflection, and there's another Caillebotte painting that he painted rain, and it just gives us goosebumps. But this one is, we're so happy we're doing this just because we discovered this Caillebotte that we had no idea about. And boom, Bert Morisseau. She was another great dame. I don't know if that's a good term of Impressionism. Girl with Dog. And 1886, also at the time when the whole revolution in painting occurred. And here we go. Here we go. A domestic scene, interior. I think. Now I'm confused. I said Julia before. I think this is Julia, her daughter, Bert Morisseau's daughter, with their dog. But please, if we could just direct your attention to the face of this dog and see how loosely painted, how simplified. There's barely any detail on it. And we love this composition from behind. You see the chair, the back seat of the chair, and Julia is just looking somewhere else. I have yet another painting by Bert Morisseau with a dog. The Morisseau greens are absolutely famous. So there is this very minty, sagey palette that she loved to use in a lot of her paintings. And we just love how she painted those gardens and hedges and botanical elements with this very high key green. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not a sap green. We talk about how anything botanical contains a lot of yellow. But in Bert Morisseau's paintings, the green has less yellow and a tiny, you could feel the blue wanting to come out of that green. And it just gives this almost aquatic or sea-like illusion that it's so wonderful. Anyhow, the dog, yes, I don't know if you can see it if you're watching live, but the dog and the greens are sharing the same space. It's so stunningly theatrical. I don't know how else to explain this. You have the periwinkles and the salmon rose tones on Julia's blouse. So that's one kind of like curtain on that stage. But then the rest is flooded with this minty green. And it just harmonizes the space so beautifully. There's green on the hair. There's green on the hat. There's green on the forearm of Julia. All right, I'm just going to stop here. Another very famous dog, Giacomo Balla. If you haven't seen it, but it's a famous futurist painting. Futurism was a little bit weird. Futurism started in Italy, and the futurists were a bunch of right-wingers, I have to say that. And so we are kind of like taking that art movement with a grain of salt. But Giacomo Balla was a little bit different than the typical futurist painter. The futurists were interested in industry, innovation, technical stuff. They thought order was necessary to just take the state or the country to the next level. Giacomo Balla was interested in movement, in light, and this is a well-known painting, futurist painting, Dynamism of a Dog on a Leash by Giacomo Balla, 1912. So yeah, it's a funny, fun, cute painting, and you could see the pattern or the repetition and the rhythm. We talk about pattern and rhythm and the differences when we get to work, but you can see here both pattern and rhythm applied to the legs of the dog and the legs of the lady who is walking the dog. So another example, this is a painter that we were not familiar with, Marguerite Zurag. She was an American painting. She is credited for bringing modernism or opening the gates of modernism in America. Let's put it this way. Vigil, 1930. She self-identified herself, the painter, as a post-impressionist, although that's a little bit late for that, late in the 20th century. Marguerite Zurag was more prominently known as a pioneer of modernism in the United States. Her work was strongly influenced by Fauvism. It's funny that we have that reference earlier in the early 20th century. Her boldly painted landscapes defined by strong saturated color and solid curving black outlines. Zurag exhibited in the 1913 Armory Show before expanding her practice into embroidery. Oh, wow. And textile art, and was continually progressive throughout her life. Okay. Jen, we just need to find out tomorrow about how she moved on from painting to fiber art. Lucian Freud, we just had to bring a Lucian Freud. Lucian Freud was a British painter, and he has a lot of portraits of people with dogs, and we just like this specific for this series. We brought as a reference this 1956 to 1958. So we know that Lucian Freud took a very long time to paint. So this painting started in 1956 and ended in 1958. That's very Lucian Freud. But what I wanted to say is something that I learned by studying a little bit or reading an article about, or the Wikipedia biography. So Lucian Freud was born in Berlin. I thought he was a British national. I think that's what we should mention it. But anyhow, so he was born in Berlin. Her mom, her parents were Jewish, both of them. Her mom's name was Lucy, and that's the reason why they named him Lucian, because of her mom. Her dad was an architect, and he was the fourth child. His dad, I'm sorry. He was the fourth child of Sigmund Freud. So Lucian Freud, I thought there was no connection, but yes, he was the grandson, one of the grandsons of Sigmund Freud. And by the way, the family left Germany to escape the Nazis, and then they just moved to the UK. I didn't know this part of the story. I just thought that Freud was not related to actual Sigmund Freud, but in fact he was. His father was one of Sigmund Freud's sons. Anyhow, so look at this darling, whimsical painting of a toy dog and a girl, very high key. We will need to find out exactly if that's an actual toy or a dog. It looks like a toy now that I'm looking at it, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. So we'll just find out. But yeah, we love the emotion, the composition. Something we've been talking recently, elements of composition. The two most important ones, movement, focal points. But I want to talk about how there's less space behind her head and the edge of the painting, and more space between the profile and the other side of the painting. So this is a wonderful example of a very well-studied composition in which there's more movement allowed for the viewer to wander in front of the face than there is on the back of the head. So there you go. We talked this week, not very nicely, I would say, when we did the Barclay L. Hendricks webinar. We talked about Alex Katz. Well, Alex Katz, who is still alive and who is still painting, I think he's 93. He has a lot of paintings of dogs, and this is one of them. Untitled Dog 2012. Composition, color palette, texture. Look at how he resolved these brilliantly. No perspective. The dog is cropped. The different directions of the fur done with like very loose hatch strokes. And also, the color palette, all neutrals from, I'm identifying here from Van Dyke Brown all the way to, I would say, buff titanium or ecru. So it's a beautiful example of how this subject should not intimidate us. We will work off of photographs. We have compiled several images of Champ and Major, and we can work with cropping as well, even if we want to select images that are similar. We could select the official portrait that we showed earlier and then do different croppings. Talking about a painter who is contemporary, that nobody knows that they're alive, Wayne Thiebaud is still alive, and he is still painting. He's known for doing paintings of slices of cakes and the gumball machines. I don't know if that's the right expression, but yeah, this painting is titled Dog Clown 2019. And we love it because we painted clowns and now we're going to paint dogs. So this is kind of like all wrapped up in one. But yeah, it's a typical Wayne Thiebaud painting. You can see the color, the colorful cast shadow, neutral background, and this kind of like reverberating edge between things. Look at the separation between the the floor and the wall, and that line has two colors. It has a red and it has a light blue. So a lot of like visual, interesting, colorful effects on edges of things, cast shadows being colorful, but yeah, a very indecent painting of a dog on a stool. And we have another Alex Katz. This is from 2002, and it's a beautiful composition. Talk about how masterfully well arranged everything is. There's no cropping. The cast shadow fits perfectly. It gives us a little bit of a room between the cast shadow and the edge. We have no horizon line, so we don't see the horizon, but we have a line that separates the water from the sand, and the fact that the figure of the dog is above that line just gives us a wonderful perspective. Without the line, this would be a toy figure right next to a dog, but we don't have that confusion. We can see that the shoreline is behind the dog and the person is about to go into the water, and then the cast shadow brilliantly, it's not perfect because look, the cast shadow, if you notice the dog, it's not starting from the four legs. It's a really weird cast shadow because it only starts from one leg, so it's totally off. But it's enough. It's enough to make us understand that the dog is an upright figure and the sand is a horizontal surface. That's all we need. So, by the way, I love this golden yellow on the fur of the dog. And notice that the shaded area of the dog is also golden yellow, but a little bit darker. So, I wanted to say here that Alex Katz, it seems like a bland painter, very commercial. We've seen things over and over. It almost feels like graphic illustration like. But Alex Katz has been very influential, a very influential American painter to many contemporary artists. Richard Prince talks about being influenced by Alex Katz. Elizabeth Peyton, you can see reminiscence of Elizabeth Peyton-esque characteristics here in this painting, but she has been influenced by Alex Katz. Peter Doig and his landscapes have an influence of Alex Katz. David Sal has been influenced by Alex Katz. So perhaps Alex Katz paintings feel commercial and bland and all that stuff, but he is a major figure in contemporary painting still. Anyhow, so I'm gonna move closer to us. Well, maybe not that close to us, but yeah, 1982, Jean-Michel Basquiat. This is a painting of a dog, and obviously we've seen dogs in these idyllic scenes throughout art history. They're sleeping, they're on people's laps, they're calm. They add to this idea of bucolic scene, but we brought this one because that's not the case. I'm just gonna read like an extract of an article talking about how Basquiat focused on dichotomies such as wealth versus poverty, integration versus segregation. He appropriated poetry, drawing, and painting, and married text and image, abstraction, figuration, and historical information mixed with contemporary critique. So sometimes we look at we have our within our community we have our defenders of Jean-Michel Basquiat, and we have the people who can stand Jean-Michel Basquiat, and we have very good conversations about it. But Jean-Michel Basquiat wasn't a one-trick pony. Let me just put it this way. He was really invested in again, merging the dichotomies or the oppositions in life. So this is a dog that is angry, and it's a guard dog. It's a dog that we don't know if it's gonna go ahead and attack us or not. It could be a police dog also. Jean-Michel Basquiat has a famous painting of a police beating two policemen beating a figure. So Basquiat used social commentary in his paintings as a tool for introspection and for identifying with his experiences in the Black community of his time, as well as attacks on power structures and systems of racism. Basquiat's visual poetics were acutely political and direct in their criticism of colonialism and support for class struggle. Again, the conceptual background of this painting is completely radically different from anything that we've shown, and for that alone, it's a good example to show how dogs can be conceptual forces to express ideas that feel very pertaining to the artist's environment and historical context. So two images, someone called, but two images. This one, let me see if I can bring this. Hold on one second. These are contemporary. This is a painting by Jessica Alazraki, Tattoo Girl and Dog, painted 2020. So she was born in Mexico. She's a Latinx artist. She lives in New York, lives and works in New York, and she does these paintings of scenes, quotidian scenes, and of her family and her friends. We love this. My face is covering the baby's portrait, but we love conceptually. We love the idea of showing you guys, hopefully, the stretch from the Boldini and the Belle Epoque, all these sort of like white people in fancy dresses, and this contemporary version of the same thing. A very contemporary scene of family with dogs in 2020. And finally, to end this presentation, I just went out of time. But to end this presentation, we found this image by artist Ryan Michael Ford, also a contemporary artist. Bong Dog 2015. And this is a series that he's not involved in anymore, but he used to make large canvases. Talk about amazing revolutions in composition. Lois, you made me laugh. But what he did, or he went into more of a I know the abstraction now, which I think it's kind of boring. But with this series, he brought images of dogs doing human things, and we love his work. And talk about a different kind of composition and movement. There's plenty of negative space all around, no perspective. This is the on the opposite extreme of Pierre Bonnard. when the background and the room really comes forward first, and then you discover a figure bathing in there or cooking. But here, forget about that. And then boom, this kind of like this ugly dog holding something outrageous. Anyhow, we hope you enjoyed this presentation. Let me see if I can finish this by the first image. Never mind. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this presentation. First Dogs, please sign up. We'll provide a portfolio of images featuring Dog and Champ, who are the current canine residents at the White House after a very long absence of... I'm getting kicked out. So yeah, join us tomorrow. We're gonna have an encore on Tuesday. So the webinar, we introduced it this week. It was amazing. Today tomorrow we do the webinar, encore on Tuesday, and we can wait to see the work coming out of the series. Bye, everybody.